Oh, hey, we're live. Awesome. Wow. Sorry, folks. It's been a while since I had done this last time, and obviously I was a little rusty. Couldn't remember if I was using OBS or StreamYard, and to be honest, I'm still not sure which one I used last time. Awesome. But anywho, let's get to it, shall we? Thanks so much for everybody coming by. We we are talking all about mood boards today. Let me just pour some tea here so we can just kind of chat first. Okay, where was I? Here we go. So yeah, mood boards. Let me just. You don't need to see this. Let's just talk. There we go. All right. So mood boards. Let's talk about mood boards. What are they? Why do we use them? How do we build them? All that stuff. So essentially, what mood boards are. Actually, let me introduce myself first. My name is Matt Paquette. I am a graphic designer, and I head up a studio called Matt Paquette and Company. And we're about 11 or 12 people right now, and we work primarily on board games. We do the odd non-board game project, but pretty much all board games. We've been in operation for over a decade now and have worked on, I'd say, over 150 titles. The last year, we had some crazy growth and ended up working on like 55 or 60 titles alone. So that was pretty incredible. So that's a little bit about me. I'm saying a lot. I apologize. So, okay, that's me. And let's just jump right in. So, mood boards, what are they? A mood board is basically something that you use to get on the same style and theme and feel page as your client, so that before you actually start doing any design work or illustration or anything that actually creating anything new, you're creating a shared framework or shared vision of what this project that you're about to undertake with your client is going to feel like. Because games at their core are supposed to be these very immersive things, and the more immersion you have, the better experience. So if you're playing a game that is all about factory workers, and you're really not, and then they had a poor choice of all these different visual cues, and they're not really giving you a good immersive experience, then I bet you that could have been helped with a great mood board to start off with, so that it establishes this framework. It's not they're not just inspiration. Mood boards are great for like saying, when you start going down these visual garden paths as you're designing things. Not only are they great for inspiration, but that's just a small part of what they do. Like it's also really great to use as a litmus test for design concepts. Like, no, not that, or yes, that, but even more so. It helps you kind of use them as buoys as you're navigating down the river to keep on course with where you feel this game is going to be, or a game or a project or whatever it is. So like I said before, they're like a shared vision for everybody working on the project, so that no matter who you are, whether you're the client or the illustrator, the designer, or the creative director, or the art director, or whoever, or even the copywriter, anybody, once you have this buy-in from all the stakeholders, they know where the game is going to sit thematically, stylistically, and where that you're going to build that world in their head based on the mood board that you create. And it's a really easy way to design or to create these constraints, visual constraints for the project. Like it's really going to help you narrow that focus from, I don't know, I want a game about amusement parks, to I'm looking for a New Orleans type carnival type amusement park that is, you know, set in the 1800s, and it helps you narrow stuff down so that you're not having to deal with things that really aren't part of what you want this thing to be. Okay, let's see here. Do we have anybody watching? Let's take a look. I should do this, and then I'm just going to mute myself. One watching. I think that's me, but that's okay. All right, so one of the other things that I wanted to talk about was, so what, you know, we now know what a mood board is. You know, in essence, maybe not in practice, but in essence, we know what it is. We know what the purpose of it is. We know what it helps us do and what it helps us not do. What are the good elements what are the elements of a great mood board? So, mood boards help define tone or emotion of your project. They help set the scene in, you know, because if you were to think about going back to that amusement park game we were talking about, you know, a carnival, a dark kind of sideshow carnival type game, amusement park, is vastly different than the Disney bright and, you know, bright colors and everybody has smiles on their face kind of carnival or amusement park. So it really helps set the tone or emotion you're trying to hit. It's a great way of establishing a color palette that we want for the game. So, you know, color really can go so far in talking about and conveying the mood of a game, the style, the feel, the emotion. So getting that down on a mood board can you know is an essential thing. Very rarely do we work on games that have no typography. I mean, at the very least, you're going to have a rule book. So typography is certainly going to be a huge part of this. And just like colors, typography, the typeface choice you make, especially for display fonts, not the stuff that you're going to be using for body text, because those tend to be a little on the, you know, less stylistic side of things. But they still can have some flavor. But when you know, the areas that you really are able to flex those style muscles when it comes to typography is doing titles and other display fonts that are meant to be used in larger implementations and applications. So typography is a huge one. Like we've all seen that that meme where it says fonts matter, and there's like it says I will find you, or I'll come find you, and it's just like a nice little Arial or a Comic Sans font. And then they switch to another slide where it shows I will find you, and it's in that like Fangoria dripping blood kind of font. Like, it makes a difference. So all right, what's next? So we've talked about tone or emotion, some color, some typography. Another thing that really helps with mood boards establishing a great style is using textures and materials. So let's see. Going back to our amusement park, I don't even know why I thought about amusement park game, but let's make one. So amusement park game again. Textures and materials. What would they be? You know, you could be like, if it's like that, depending on the feel you want to go with. If it's like that Carnival dark thing, Maybe you'll have like the stripes, the typical carnival circus stripes, but it'll have some grit to it. Or you could do, you know, some old wood, or you know, whatever fabrics of the bright fabrics and things of the costumes. So many different kind of things come to mind for that. And then conversely, if you're doing like a Disney super bright, you know, amusement park game, you're gonna have like the sky, like a blue sky with clouds, or you know, brighter things, and adding those textures and materials into your mood board will also help you narrow things down. And then the very last thing is really banking on a lot of that pop culture hooks that people have. So one of our favorite things is to say, you know, to use similes or comparisons. So if you're like, yeah, so I'm doing this amusement park game, but I want it to be, you know, less of a I don't know if you refer to a couple, that Carnival show with Jude Law, you know, less of that, but more along the lines of, and then say something else, another movie or TV show or book, or some paintings that somebody, you know, well-known media, whether it's like film or TV or anything like that, help you know, have a really strong, people know these things. So when you mention less like this thing that they've seen maybe a couple of times, and more like this other thing that they've maybe seen even more, they're like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I can draw the link between those two things. So that's cool. Oh, look at this, it's Muzzy. Hey, Muzzy. So that's, you know, mood boards when it comes to that. I think those are those 5 things. Again, it's tone, color, typography, textures or materials, and then reference systems are these things that, you know, referring to things that are out in the universe right already, that have a very clear, people have a very clear knowledge of, so that they can have a reference point. What do bad mood boards do? Let's talk about that for a second. A bad mood board is someone just tossing a bunch of images together and making a collage or a Pinterest board. That's a start, but it's certainly not, you know, on its own, it's certainly not a good mood board. Bad mood boards don't have hierarchies. You want to establish a hierarchy so that you understand what things are important, what things are less important, and so on and so forth. Again, whether it's, you know, organizing it into likes and dislikes as well. A mood board is just as much, I want these things, this is where I see this thing going stylistically. It's as much that as much as it's, I really don't want it going in this direction. Don't use this color, don't use this texture. For the love of God, don't make it like this movie, you know, that kind of stuff. So I think almost like sometimes the not wants, like the things you don't want, are almost more important than the things you do want. Bad mood boards don't explain things. Just tossing a texture or a color or a font in there, that's fine. But when you give context to what you're thinking of why you included it in there as a designer, or as a, you know, sometimes you're making a mood board if you're just like the game designer or the publisher or whoever you are, there's some thought process behind making your selections. So make a couple of notes as to why you included that. Hey, I really love the piping on this uniform. The color I don't really care for, but I love the gold braided piping on this. You know, that could be really helpful for a card frame. Or just the more explanation you give, the more understanding people are going to have where you're coming from and why you put things there. And then lastly, bad mood boards um, really don't show any connection to the gameplay. You know, when you're creating a mood board, you want to, you know, well, ostensibly you know the type of game you're making this for, so you know what the gameplay is like. Is it fast paced? Is it a long drawn out like a strategic game where you're really not in a huge hurry to play the game, but it's like more about the story. You know, all these things matter in figuring out how to connect the things that you're including and the information you're providing for the mood board. Connecting that to gameplay is hugely important. Muzzy's asking, who's the mood board for? The client, artist, both. Everybody on the project should be able to get as much benefit from these mood boards as anybody, because they are, they're just going to help you build a better immersive experience. Whether you're a designer, whether you're a world builder, writer, publisher, an artist, anybody. Okay, so we've talked about what bad mood boards aren't. What are good mood boards? Good mood boards organize information into sections. You know, just tossing stuff on there willy-nilly, I mean, that's fine, but if you organize stuff, people will see your thought process and see where you're blending things, where you're organizing things, why you're organizing certain things in certain places. Maybe you want to do it for, maybe there are a couple of items in your game that are extremely different in terms of visual style. So then separate those two out of the mood board. Say, hey, you know, there's the light side and the dark side of this, or there's stuff that happens during the day and stuff that happens during the night, and they could be two vastly different styles with some ties together, but with some common goals. But you know, they could be very different. So then separate that out and organize it. Like I was saying before, label your intent. Why are you putting this stuff there? You know, what if you're putting a picture there of a car, for instance? Why? What about the car? Is it the paint color? Is it the rims? Is it the shape of the spoiler? I don't know anything. What about that item that you're including in this mood board? Why are you including it, and what part of it are you resonating with? Hey, Jason. Sure. Yeah. So Jason's asking if we could share some mood board examples of past or current projects. We're also going to build one today, and we'll see how that goes. So, okay. What else? Okay, so mood boards, I really got to stop saying mood boards. So these things are great because one of the goals of a great mood board is to tie those things you're including, and whether it's individually or as a group, to your design goals. So what are the design goals of your project? What are you trying to do visually, user experience wise, accessibility wise? All of this stuff really can tie into how you make your selections of what to include in these boards. And we'll get into that a little bit later as well. And then lastly, good mood boards show a range of what would be acceptable for different things while constraining things that aren't going to be acceptable. Like it doesn't mean that, someone just told me recently that good art direction is providing feedback that gives people an area to play in. Bad art direction is saying, this is what I want, and kind of giving you a point source of I want this and only this. Rarely in art direction is there only one answer for what constitutes a good piece of art. So by giving them constraints rather than, super specific direction and strict direction, one of my favorite things to do is to give broad constraints to people and build them a little sandbox that they can play in, because they surprise you every time, and it's such a delight. I used to get so disappointed when I would ask for a specific thing and they would give it back to me. I'm like, oh no, that's not what I wanted. I stopped doing that because I was disappointed every time. Now I'm like, hey, here's the kind of thing I'm on a feel in this, and I try and paint them a picture so that they give them a little sandbox that they can play in, and they're going to surprise you and impress you. I guarantee it. Okay. So, like I was talking about before, connecting your games, your mood boards to gameplay is really important. So what does that mean? When you're designing, when you're putting together your mood board, like I said, ostensibly what kind of game it is, how it plays, and things like that. And if you don't know, you really should play the game. One of the worst things I ever did was the first game or so that I played or that I worked on from start to finish only had I didn't play. And I look back on it now and I'm just like, oh, that was such a bad decision. How am I going to know how to help make a immersive experience if I don't know how the experience is to begin with? And the same goes for making mood boards. We ask all of our clients. Let's talk about that for a second, actually. So our process as a company is we get reached out to by the client through our website or through an email from a referral or whatever, or I meet them at a show or what have you. And we set up a time to chat. And during that initial call, they kind of download what the project is to us. And if that's something that we really are resonating with, and we're like, yeah, this sounds great. Let's keep going. And it's something that we want to help with. Then we either do it then or we make another appointment to do another call where they run us through the gameplay. And one of the good things that came out of the pandemic was so many more people are using Tabletop Simulator and other online and virtual tabletop environments to prototype their games. And what this does is it allows you to get that experience without having to get mailed a prototype, which by the time it gets to your house or your office may or may not still be relevant. It could be obsolete. I mean, I remember that happened with me a couple of times. So we play at least a couple of rounds of the game. We understand how it goes. We understand what the gameplay is like. Okay, great. Now we see what the vision for the gameplay is. Now we can, talk about theme. What's the setting going to be? What's all of the what are all the other visual and story cues that you want to kind of keep in mind as you're doing this, as we're designing. So, okay, so what information does that give us? Well, it tells us, for gameplay wise and mechanics wise, it says, by this point we will know, is it a fast-paced game? If it's a fast-paced game, we're going to make suggestions in the mood board that are going to be high contrasted colors, bold icons, easy to decipher icons, stuff that you can read in a split second so you can make fast decisions and keep the gameplay going quickly. Flip the coin on that and talk about a long form, whether it's like a role playing game, for instance. I just started a game last night. I'm DMing for my group this time around, and we just did our session 0 last night, and this is going to be a 4 or 5 year campaign. So really, this is like the long game. So how do we play around with that? Well, then you lean more into making things maybe feel more, what do they call it? Diegetic, like putting you in that world, so, versus making something like a black text on a white background so you could play a party game super quickly. Now it's all about how do we set the scene? How do we let you kind of marinate in that for a while while you're role playing or while you're playing a longer strategy game. So yeah, really doing things to augment or to play to like putting together your mood board so that you can play to the mechanics is really an important thing. How do you know you've made a good mood board? Well, this isn't when we do mood boards, we don't kind of just make it, and it's not a closed document. We make our mood boards on we use a project management system called ClickUp, and they have these whiteboards that we can share with our clients, and it's a collaborative effort. We'll take the first pass at them, and then we'll share it with them and say, hey, have a look at this, make some comments, add some stuff, and it's a living document. But never do we say, hey, do you like this? Because that doesn't really give us the answers we're looking for. Instead, we say stuff like, which parts of this help you or make you feel like they're close to the direction or the experience you're trying to create for the players? Which parts of this are moving away from that? And then we can narrow down, and they can add stuff, and then we can add some more stuff that hopefully, based on their feedback, we get more relevant inclusions in this. And at the very least, you need to, before you put pen to paper on any design work, you need to make sure that everybody is like, yep, this mood board is stylistically where we're going to be living in this game, because you're going to be coming back to this mood board all the time. For design inspiration, for touch points, like just to touch to really kind of reset your mind, and because sometimes as a designer, I'll start with a vision of something, and then it'll fork off into something that is completely different than what I started with, and at the end of the day, sometimes it doesn't. You look back at the mood board and you compare the thing you just made to the mood board, and they're like not really brother and sister. They're more like distant cousins, and this is something that by checking the mood board often and really kind of getting consensus on that with your clients, you're able to have that shared vision so that you're not stabbing in the dark stylistically and wasting their money and your time, because they're not going to be very happy about that. And I'm sure you won't either, because you're going to have to redo stuff. Muzzy, he's a big fan of the digital playtesting. Yeah, me too. Physical playtesting is certainly amazing to do when you can, but as a close second, digital playtesting has especially for such a decentralized workforce that we have now, playing on TTS versus not playing at all, or watching somebody on video kind of holding the cards and saying, well, then this card is played like that. It at least bridges the gap a little bit. But that's a really great point, Muzzy. And then he says, for sure, the right questions, using the mood board as reference is very important. That guided question, the guided questioning prevents the form from going in a completely different direction. Yep, absolutely. I'd like to say that never happens, but it does. Okay, so it's about a half an hour on just kind of like the who's in the ins and outs and the who's its and the what fors of mood boards. Let's talk a little bit about. Well, let's dive into making our own. So, okay, let me see if I can. Where is I had some tabs? Let me just give me 1 second here. Okay, here's my thing. Whoops. Okay, so I'm gonna do this in InDesign because it's the easiest thing to do it in. I could do it in our whiteboards, but I don't know the key shortcuts as well, so this will be a little bit more of a streamlined process for me, and I won't be fumbling around nearly as much. See you, Muzzy. Thanks for stopping by. Okay, what do we got? So, let's switch scenes here. This is me down in the bottom, and here we get an InDesign. Okay, so we've got a game. Let's call it a Wild West base game, rootin' tootin' cowboy game. I think this is a great place to start because we'll get a lot of already. I think a lot of us have some visions of where this thing can go. So after we've talked to the client, we know that this is it's a game. It's a family game, and it plays fairly quickly, and it's going to have some humor to it, and maybe some grit as well. So what do we do? Where do we start? I don't know. That's I tend to have way too many tabs open when I'm doing mood boards. So one of my favorite things to go to is Google Images, and we're using these for reference only. So it's not like we need to get permission and things like that. We're never going to publish this. So, all right. So let's go to. All right. What did I look up? I looked up Old West textures. So things like parchment, like that old Bonanza thing where the flame eats the parchment in the middle and stuff like that. So I think this is a great place to start. So we're going to copy this image, and we'll just toss it in here. What else? This is probably really good too. Some wood, or maybe something like this one. Let's do that. Let's see. Okay, we're going to flip over to some fabric. I love this. So maybe some of the southern and New Mexico and things like that, they'd have some Native American fabrics like this. Love it. Again, I'm not doing the right thing. There we go. Leather's also really good. So paisley and some of the design patterns, maybe bandana stuff like this. Yeah, that might not be too bad. Well, that's too small. Let's see if we can get this a little bigger. That's good enough. Cool. So this is a good start for fabrics and textures and things like that. What else we got? Architecture. The boomtown stuff, like we look at this with the boomtown front. I remember once when I was working at our Central Banks Museum, we did a while our museum was getting renovated, we had a 15 or 20 foot window in another museum in town that we could put an exhibition in. And one of the ones we did was this thing all about phantom banks. And what phantom banks are, for those of you who don't know, in the Yukon, for the gold rush in the 1800s, people would get paid in silver, and these phantom banks would come around saying, "Hey, I'll trade you this banknote for your silver, your 5 silver pieces, and it's $5 banknote, and you can spend this. It doesn't weigh doesn't weigh as much, and it's a little easier to carry, and you can just use that." And then the unfortunate thing was people didn't realize that these banks didn't really exist; they were phantoms. So the dollar bills literally weren't worth the money, the paper they were written on. So, anyways, we did this little thing where it was these. We had these boomtown facades, and you pushed a button in oil we had these gold pans that had buttons in them. You push the button, and the two doors, or the front of the building, which was split down the middle, would open up like saloon doors, and you could read all about the stuff inside. Anyways, little tangent for you. All right, so architecture. I love this boomtown facade. This is great. They did this so that they could make the buildings appear larger than they were, so that they can attract clientele. You have like this general store. There's just a facade. There's nothing behind it. Let's see what else Oh, this is beautiful. I love this. So the things we're looking for when we're doing this, the things I'm looking for when I'm doing stuff like this, is certain characteristics. If I were to look at this, it would be like the balcony, for instance, like the porch up top. What else? Stuff like, any kind of, it doesn't have to be the whole image in general. It could be the whole image in general, but it could be like, I love the stringers in that balcony, or I love this little circular window up here, right? Whatever. It's just anything that you think would be of benefit. Oh, this is going to be a good image. Anything that would be of benefit to really painting that picture, and getting into that world. This would be amazing for the box cover, to have like you could, if it was like a dueling game or something like that, you'd have your character here and then your other character here, and they're like kind of pointing their guns at each other, and in the background you could have this great boomtown main street. That'd be neat. Anyways, what else we got? So keep going on this stuff. It's pretty cool. Cactuses. I think cactuses are a really good example of stuff that we would put in there. What do we have? This jewelry. I love using jewelry because you're always wanting to use metal and things like that in games, game design, like graphic design or frameworks and things like that. Metal is a great thing because you can shape it into anything, and it becomes really useful. So, what are some really great bolo ties? Look at these. These are fantastic. Great example of what you could use. You could use, what's this? What's that? What's that gem called? Anyways, it's turquoise, I think. So this turquoise stuff here, another great example of just little, when you're designing, when you're illustrating and things like that, sometimes if you're doing like an icon or something, the inspiration that you get could be like, oh yeah, that's actually these little teardrops from this all put together in a circle. That's what that icon is. Like, oh, okay, cool. So yeah, just finding a bunch of different little ornamentations. Like the paisley in this is gorgeous. I'm not sure if it'll fit, but at this point we're not looking to we're not looking to really have. We don't want to be picky, is what I'm trying to say. We can delete stuff later. You know, figuring out. It's really easy. Just grab whatever you can, and we'll grab if something sparks your interest for the smallest of reasons. Grab it, put it in there. If you don't, if later you think if it doesn't make the cut later, then it doesn't. What else? Oh, here's a good idea. So it's not. So we got some cowhide. I think that's a great texture to put in there. What else? Okay, so I think we got enough textures and little ornaments. Clothing. Here's a good idea. Cowboy hats. Here's a good old picture of Doc Holliday. Where'd he go? There he is. These are new stuff, but if we looked at some old things, like look at that. That's priceless. I'm not sure if this will be helpful or not, but it certainly is neat. And yeah, right now, this thing is a mess, right? So I'm going to go back here in a few minutes and clean it up into sections and figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. So, this dress is kind of neat. It's got some nice patterns on it. I think this is probably more period specific, which is kind of cool. As is the poof sleeves. If anybody watched Anne of Green Gables, she wanted her dress with the poof sleeves. I'm probably dating myself there, but there you go. Okay, how about some men's clothing? This is cool. Oh, this is neat. I like this. Why? I don't know. Just caught my eye. Okay, so we got some clothes. Fonts. Let's talk about fonts. So there's a couple of things. Like fonts. There's a couple of things about fonts that I think are worth mentioning. When we're working with fonts with clients, I have heard horror stories of purchasing a font for desktop use, using it in a game. Usually, if there's any trouble, it's going to be because it's been used in the title of the logo and things like that. And then the Foundry coming after the publisher for not getting a commercial license. There have been a handful of those stories over the years, so one of the easiest ways to sidestep all of that nonsense. I mean, of course, the Foundries deserve to get paid for their work. I mean, I have no issues there. But the problem is a lot of these times, people aren't as knowledgeable about licensing of fonts and things like that as a graphic designer would be. So they just assume it's on my computer. I should be able to use it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So in order to avoid pitfalls like that, warranted or not, there's two sites that I recommend looking for your fonts on. The first one is Adobe Fonts, because if you are a Creative Cloud subscriber, you have commercial rights to use those fonts. The second one is Google Fonts. Google Fonts are all licensed, are royalty, not just royalty free, they're free to use commercially. So those are two very safe options to use. Mind you, that being said, I have, more often than not, if you reach out to a Foundry is a company that makes fonts. If you reach out to a Type Foundry and you say, especially one of the smaller ones, you say, hey, I just bought a license for this font. I'm going to be using it in a board game. Is there is there a commercial license that I can purchase? I didn't see one on the website or whatever. I've done that on several occasions. And you know what the answer more than not was? Oh gosh, yeah, go ahead. Oh, you're good to go. The standard license is fine. And when they are so accommodating, I send them a copy of the game. Hey, look, your font's in this game. Thanks so much. I did that with, he's kind of in the industry too, or he is in the industry too. Maddox Schuler, who is one of the principals over at Keymaster Games. He's actually, Maddox is a type designer, and he has a font foundry called Fort Foundry. We're going to be looking at some of the fonts in a second. Yeah. So anyways, Adobe Fonts is where we're at. And I just did a quick search for Wild West. There's some good potentials here. And what I'll usually do is for the mood board, the beginning of it anyways, I'll just, especially for Adobe Fonts, I'll just like, oh, you know what, this one might work, so I'll just do a screen capture. It gets the name of the font. I'll just toss it in there, and then we'll keep going. What's this way backpack? Let's increase the font size a little bit. Nothing here really. I mean, like, so in the 1800s in Wild West, type-wise, they were using a lot of cut wood type. So, and there was some letterpress as well. So that was neat. So that, stuff like these guys here, this, you sent, Essone, this one here kind of thing might work okay, but I think we can do better. So right now we're looking for both body and what they call display fonts. Display fonts are being used for titles, for logos and things like that. They're more flourishy, they're more stylized. So if this is going to be a family game with a little bit of humor to it, maybe something like this. And I'm super happy to see that there's regular, italic, bold, and bold italic. When you're looking for a body font, this is the bare minimum that you're going to want to get. So when you're selecting fonts for your that's going to be used on your rule book, on your cards, you're going to be requiring these alternate styles of the font. You want to make sure that they have those built into the font, or else you're going to be at the creek. So this one's not bad. I think it's still a little too flashy. Let's see what happens if we go Old West. Yeah, so I mean, like, a lot of us think of this kind of thing when we think of the Old West, right? Not a fan of it myself, but that's certainly one of the things. So there's 4 fonts in this. What's this one look like? No, that's too thick. Anyways, so what we might end up having to do is just look for I think in this game we probably want to look for maybe a semi-sans font. This is nice. This is really readable. All right, let's try this. Dashel. Actually, I think I've used Dashel before. Perfect. So let's see if we like that one. Now it's time to get into some really fun fonts. And we're going to go back to Maddox's site. So if this is Fort Foundry, they've got lots of amazing fonts here to choose from. I used Shackleton in where is it? Here it is. I used this font family because it's ginormous. There's so many styles. I used this in the Merchants of the Dark Road. Absolutely love this font. It's got such an old feel to it. I love it. So yeah, so there's this one, or one of my favorite ones, and this I think this would be fantastic for a Western game, is Bourbon. I purchased this font a while ago, so big fan of this one too. So we're just gonna do a screen cap of this guy, and let's choose one more. Bourbon does have a bigger brother. Whoops. Let's see. Bourbon has a bigger brother called Gin, or is it the other way around? Yeah, no, it's Gin is a little wider. It's not as condensed, and it also has very much of a collegiate feel to it. Oh, it's a Prohibition, sorry, my bad. Gin. So it's got a little bit of a collegiate feel, but it does have these flared terminals here. So let's do this, and we're going to capture the top here as well. Toss that in. I love that it has these little catchwords that you can use. Awesome. So we got a few fonts. We can toss Prohibition in there as well. This might be a little too modern for what we want to do, but I think it certainly is within reason. What's next? Yeah, I think that's it for that. Why don't we go back and do some work on our organization and notes and things like that. So, okay, I think we need to shrink everything. Okay, so let's go textures, just this over here. All right, and then these guys. So as you're building these, I'm not going to go into detail for all of them, but you know, you could do stuff like great for card backs, and then let's make this 30. So great for card backs, and then we can just do a line. And we're going to make it blue, whoops, blue, and arrow. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go down to styles, and we'll create an object style for this arrow so that we can just apply it next time. Great. So great card backs. I think this could also be a good card back too. What else? And then this. We can maybe say, you know, for card textures, ability area. You know, anyways, adding notes like this, just so that people know where your thinking is. And even if it's like that's kind of like application wise some notes there, but you could also say, you know, I love this font, and then we're gonna go here and point to this font here, and or say, you know, say you have a, you know, resource, say you have resource cards, you know, resource card back, maybe this water tower is a good resource card back, you know, I don't know. Anyways, adding notes like that to the different things will really help you give context. And then let me see if I can pull up a mood board that we've done recently. Sorry, bear with me for one sec here. I'll do a search for mood board. Here we go. So here's one of our mood boards that we did. And this was for an Arthurian type game. So logo inspiration. We've got some hammered, etched metalwork here, and it's like Middle Ages on seals. You know, metal texture with painted enamel details, things like that. Inclusion of maybe Celtic knots and aged and tarnished. So making notes like this were really helpful. And then they talked about card aesthetics. So this is organized by application. So we're thinking of like metal frames or a distressed parchment, you know. And then often including like this is some reference points, right? So we're going. This is another game. I can't. Oh, this is. What game is this? I can't remember. I know it, but I've referenced it many times. They're beautiful cards. Yeah, card backs. You know, here's some card back examples or thoughts. What we could do. Exploring color palettes. There's some illumination here is what we have in some historical texts, and I think this is gorgeous stuff. I think that would be amazing. You know, and then so here's some of those more of those reference images, some box covers and things, and then some font inspiration as well. So that was a very quick mood board. They don't have to be elaborate. They just have to kind of be able to establish a shared understanding of where stylistically this project is going to live. So I'm going to wrap up the mood boards there. I do want to quickly touch on something that caused me a fair amount of grief yesterday that I think would be beneficial to some people who may have experienced similar issues. So we're working on, we had the pleasure of working with Druid City Games on Wonderland's War. And very soon we're sending to print the dual version of that. And Manny Tremblay's art is so beautiful, and it's such a pleasure to work with. The unfortunate thing is this particular game has a lot of very dark areas to it. There's a lot of black, there's a lot of things like that. And when you start layering images on top of each other to create different effects, they have this thing called TAC, total area coverage. And what they're talking about here is ink. And the printer will printers will have a, let me just take off my, hold on. So printers will have a limit to how much ink they can put on the paper. If they go above that limit in any one area, then you risk the ink not adhering to the paper, which is bad. So I think what you want to do here is, you know, very rarely do I run into these issues, but in this particular game we did. So that number that I was talking about that printers have that for total ink coverage is 320%. And if you think about CMYK as kind of like 4 scales of 0 to 100, you know, to make all the different colors, you put in 0 to 100 in all those numbers, and it gives you your color. So there's a thing called so basic black. The K stands for black. So basic black is 100% K. So it's 100 in the K value and 0 in all the other values, C, M, and Y. Oftentimes, that black can come across as very dull. It's not. It's very flat. So people, myself included, often make it more attractive, richer, by creating this thing called rich black. And my rich black formula that I use is 100% K and then 30% of all the other ones. So that gives you a total area coverage of 100 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30, which is 190. We're still well under that 320% margin. But the problem is when you start adding semi-transparent drop shadows and things on top of stuff, it multiplies. So let me show you how to spot these areas first and how to fix it. Because it took me much longer than I would like to admit yesterday. And I was a little frustrated by the end of the day. So, okay, let me see if I can. I'm going to go here, and then we'll go to let's see. No, these are not the right ones. Let's see, we're going to go up here and then faction boards. There we go. So we're looking at these. These are our faction boards. So if we want to figure out how we're doing for TAC or total area coverage, we're going to show all of our tools. And then, oops, I'm not even showing my screen. Okay, let's do that. Here we go. Okay, so we've got Wonderland's War Duel here, which is the Queen board. And I have it open in my Acrobat Pro. And what I've done is I've gone to all tools and then went to use print production. And we're going to go to output preview. And it's going to toss this window here. So as you can see, we have our process plates, cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and then our spot plates, which is our die line. So if we turn, you can barely see it because what it's doing. This is actually really good because we have set our die line to overprint, and that's why it's showing as semi-transparent because it's overprinting on top of the ink that's already there. If it wasn't set to overprint, we would see this as bright magenta, because it would be being presented on white. So this is a good thing because we can just turn this off now. And again, if we didn't set it to overprint, when we turn off the spot plate like I'm about to do, whoops, there we go. If I turn off the spot plate, you can now just see the uninterrupted art. If we didn't set it to overprint, you would see a white void where that die line was. So whoever put this one, I think it was Mar that put this one together. Good job, Mar. All right, so we've got our spot plates, we've got our process plates, and we want to figure out these areas. So again, if we're hovering over our little crosshairs here, here's our mouse up here. This area right here, it says total area coverage, and it's right now I'm hovering over the. Whenever you hover over a spot, you can just look. So I'll go up to this black. Actually, let's start with the red. We'll start with the top of her hat. This red here, it says 236%. If you look at that output preview window, we're good. Those are fine. What if we drop down into this black here? Oh, my dear, it's 330. That's too high. So how do we know where all of those spots are? What we do is we go down here and we turn on this total area coverage checkbox. Oh my goodness, look at all those green areas. So anything in green is above our limit of 320 that we've set. So this is not good. How do we fix this, you ask? Well, there's a few different ways. You can do it in Photoshop. You can do it. The problem with Photoshop is I think this image was created in RGB. And when you create an RGB, it's a much larger color space. So you have a lot more latitude in terms of vibrancy and choosing colors that come across as way more vibrant than others, than they would if with their CMYK counterparts. So converting to CMYK can often dull things up a little bit. So we could go into Photoshop and, why don't I just show you right now, actually. Let's do that. So let's go to Photoshop. We're going to open it up. Projects. Oh, let's change this to columns. Druid City. Wonderlands War Duel, working, faction boards, links, and let's go to the Queen, and here's her PNG. Okay, so we're going to go, no, that's where the original one. Is it here? Yeah, okay. So what we can do is we have our art here, and if we go up to image and mode, it's going to say, oh, look, we're in RGB. So we can stay in RGB for a second and then go over to edit, color settings. And then we're going to go to, see where it says CMYK here, swap coded 20%, GCR heavy. We're going to change this to custom CMYK. And then what that allows us to do is when we look down here, we have our total ink limit. We can set that to 300. Let's say 300. And, you know, that shows us, so if we move this whole thing, we can say how much black we want it to generate. We can go medium, or none, and I'm going to leave it at heavy, and we're going to hit OK. And we're going to hit OK. So nothing really happens yet, because it's just, because we're, like I said, RGB is a much larger color space. So we're going to convert to CMYK now. So we're going to go mode CMYK. And it's going to scream about, yep, there we go. Yikes. Look at the difference on that. Not awesome. If I was a client, I would not be happy with that. So sometimes it works. In this case, not so much. So we're going to go back here. The solution that I found for this, which I was super happy to find, is when you're in InDesign, let's go up. We're going to open up our... So we have our faction boards. When we go to export in InDesign, we have, I'm going to call this test. So we're going to export to PDF print down here. I'm going to hit save. It brings up our export PDF dialog box. Now, if we go down to output, usually what it's set to is like swap, where is it? Like Panda Game Manufacturing likes to use this coded Fogra 39. That's great, but coded Fogra 39 has a 330. So when it converts, if you have anything over 330 TAC, total area coverage, it'll drop it down. It's too high for us. We don't want that. So I did some Googling and I found some other profiles that have less. So I found this one called, where did it go? ISO coded V2 300 by ECI. How the heck did I know to find that? Well, I'm not ashamed to say that ChatGPT gave me that answer. So I had to download it and install it though. So we'll get back to this in a second. So if we go here and we go, so these are ICC profiles, which is, I'm not even sure what it stands for, but so ECI ICC profiles download is what I searched for. And I went here. Was it here? No, it wasn't there. Where was it? European Color Initiative. Well, here's where I went. Yep. So if I scroll down and I downloaded the older versions of this, and this was the offset profiles. So I downloaded these, and lo and behold, they were, let's change this to columns again. I downloaded them and exported them to our folder. So here they all were. This is all that stuff that was in that zip file. So I was a little upset yesterday because ChatGPT told me all you need to do to install this is double click on it. So I double clicked on it and it popped it up. I'm like, okay, cool. So I guess I can just close this now. And when I went to go export it, I didn't really notice that nothing popped up that said ISO coded V2 300. So I thought maybe it was one of the other ones, and I kind of picked the one I thought it was, but in actual fact, nothing actually got installed. So I did find out that if you really want to install this correctly on a Mac, you have to go to your so Control-Shift-G, and then go to Library Color Sync Profiles. We're going to go there. We're going to open that up, and then I click on Profiles, and then I just dropped it into this folder here. And much to my surprise and happiness, there it was. Let's do a quick export here. So I exported this already using the ISO 300. So we'll look at that one in a second, but let's just try what I used to do, which is the Fogra 39 color profile. I know a lot of this stuff is very, it's very technical, and I don't pretend to know all of this stuff or even understand it, but you got to research, sometimes you got to do a little research and just understand a little bit of it so you can, pull off the miracle you need to do to be able to send this stuff to print. So we're going to export this, and it's just exporting now. So let's go back to our projects and our proofs folder, and we'll compare the two. Word Dual proofs. There it is, just popped up. So we're going to close this one. Okay, so first we're going to open up the one we just exported, the test one. Oh, I think it's still exporting. Is it? Yeah. There we go. So, okay, so we have it open. We're going to turn our little total area coverage on again and get a sunburn of green. Or not. Why is it not? Hold on. Did I not do this right? Export. Test. Save. Replace. Huh. Oh, yeah, what I used to do is this. There it is. And it's just exporting. I think I overwrote the original card, the original thing. Did I? Nope. Okay. So we're going to look at this again, and then we're going to turn, actually close this. And so I think it was showing the other one. We're going to open this again. And it better not make a liar out of me. Yeah, so we have some red. Not as bad as it was before. But if we open up the one that I exported today with that new profile, and we click this on, nothing but the die line, and the die line's set to overprint, and it doesn't get printed anyways. This falls exactly within what we wanted. So anyways, all of that just to show that if you guys ever run into this issue, if you can't solve it yourself, drop me a line. I'm happy to help. And together we can get it sorted. But it was certainly a head scratcher for a lot of people, and not something you run into too often, mostly with darker games like all the black and everything, and like I said, once you get it solved, and it's pretty much an easy solution going forward. So thank you, everybody. This went on a little bit of a tangent, but it was very top of mind for me, and I thought some people would get some benefit from it. So thanks again for sticking around, and I hope you all have a great evening, and I guess we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye now.